Morning, everybody. How are we doing today? It's a Sunday morning here in the upper Midwest, Minnesota, USA. Got some fun records to talk about today. We're diving back into the Norman Granz universe. The Clef, Verve, Norgran assemblage of titles is such an incredible temple, for lack of a better word. It's just an incredible documentation of the greatest players from the greatest era of the game. I mean, it's baseball in the 50s. You know what I mean? Your Mickey Mantles and your Joe DiMaggios and it's just incredible, the talent pool that exists at this zenith in the music. The swing era had produced an overabundance of players, and there was probably 10 white players for every black player, which is often undocumented. The amount of work that was out there for white bands is just endless. For black bands, the demand and the amount of jobs available was just far less. And for every documented, remembered, recorded player, there was hundreds, if not thousands, of jazz players out there doing this music. Up until probably the 70s, a jazz band was what you got for your event, for your party, for your bar mitzvah, for your wedding. It was just, the swing bands were dance music in this country, dance music in the world. I mean, dance music is this celebration of life. Jazz codifies that. It remixes the dust and dirt of life. It makes an enjoyable pancake out of it all. I mean, it's an incredible testament to an oppressed people finding the joy between the tears. And in this moment in the late 40s going into the 50s post-war, and with the dawning of the bebop era, the disassemblage of the swing bands as economics had changed and travel demands had changed and the country had changed, the migrations out of the East Coast to the South and to the West Coast, so much had changed in the country so dramatically. And it left a lot of greats kind of without a home. And even the greatest swing bands, the Ellingtons and the Bassies, the Woody Hermans and the Stan Kentons, they all felt a real ding in their currency. And as this shift happens in the music, and as the jump blues leads to the rhythm and blues and the early rock and roll, which were pretty much synonymous terms. The early hits of rhythm and blues and the early hits of rock and roll, when you're going to the late 40s, early 50s, those are the same sounds. It's a very important thing to recognize how synonymous rhythm and blues and rock and roll really was, for the most part, in that moment. And I was at karaoke last night in Minneapolis, and a sister started singing some Led Zeppelin. Hey, Mom, I like the way you move, gonna make you sweat. And she reminded you how black Led Zeppelin was. And most of the time when people sing a song that's not of their culture or their immediate landscape, it often makes that song sound like, oh, that's what it would sound like through that filter. But when she sang this song, it just reminded you how incredibly black and rhythm and blues Zeppelin was. And it's a pretty clear lineage. But out of this diaspora of shattered swing bands and jump blues and this new dawning of the Ray Charleses and the descendants of the Bull Moose Jacksons and the Louis Jordans. All the jazz cats that were these legends were kind of homeless. And the White Cats obviously had different distribution channels, different options for their careers. Often they fell into the Hollywood and film studios and then the television studios, the Tonight Show bands, the Vegas lounge acts. The White Cats who wanted to stay with music often found a way, even if it took them far away from jazz. Black players rarely left jazz. If you were a jazz player of any report, it just was not an option to do something else. You didn't have alternatives. You didn't become a lawyer or a car salesman very often. And I've written the bios of over 700 jazz players in these jazz trading cards in the series that I've been working on. And it's clearly delineated the gap between white guys in their post-jazz hit lives and careers and black cats who rarely have a post-jazz career. Post-jazz for them is usually a coffin. It's something that they did till death. And that meant many of them toiled in obscurity and financial disregard. They were often just cast aside. And even guys that we hold in high esteem today, like a guy like Hank Mobley, died rather destitute and impoverished and forgotten. And I'm sure he'd be somewhat shocked today to see what some of his records fetch. And they're fantastic records. But I certainly think he would be greatly chagrined to hear someone talking about one of his great blue notes and to have them go on for 20 minutes about the pressing and the address of the pressing and the condition of the wax and the jacket, and never once talk about his music, never once talk about his playing style or what he invokes in you as a listener. I mean, this is what art's supposed to be, not just a deassemblage of the canvas and the paint material that was used. But so into that gap of unemployed black artists, Norman Granz really steps in, and he was a rather unassuming music producer, arranger. He wasn't this skilled, qualified guy from the high-ranking halls of music. He was a guy that just saw a void and a need and stepped into it. And a guy like Creed Taylor in some ways, who kind of just makes his own name. And with Norman, it starts really with the Jazz of the Philharmonic stuff and the post-war years, which he builds as a concert series, which leads to a series of recordings, which initially aren't even distributed by him or his label. They were often on Ash or Stinson, Mercury Records. Ends up having distribution of all the early stuff. Norman manages to reassemble that stuff all under his own imprints when he launches Clef and eventually Norgran. And then he eventually reconsolidates all that stuff onto the Verve label after he signs Ella Fitzgerald away from Decca Records in 1956. And his lineage of recordings through the Jazz of the Philharmonic stuff, all the way through his sale of Verve to MGM eventually in 60-61. That body of work is just unassailably the greatest body of work in the jazz canon. And you could make this argument based off the volume of the work alone. It's an incredibly huge body of work. But when you look at the innovators that he records, the greatest giants of this music, all the great inventors and reinventors of the instruments that became the jazz canon, I mean, they're all here. And with that being said, let's talk about this record we're playing right now. It's Lionel Hampton and his Jazz Giants, and this is on Norgran. And it's Norgran number 1080, probably 1956. And it was re-released on Verve in 8170. And for those who are trying to clear up in their head the Clef, Norgran, Verve cross-referencing, generally speaking, 8100 series stuff is Norgran reissues. 8000 series stuff is generally Clef reissues. And to further convolute that, those Clef and Norgran titles that come from the 1000 and the 600 series both had 10-inch issuings as well, with Clef having probably around 110 inches and Norgran probably 35 or so. And those got repackaged onto LPs in the 600 Clef and the 1000 series in Norgran, and plus some new material was grafted into those sequences. And then eventually all those titles get repackaged and reissued again in the Verve 8000 and 8100 series. So really new Verve material launches in about 8200. Aside from stuff in the 4000 sequence, which was really the Ella Fitzgerald line. So anything that she was recording in those 55, 56 years, where I think she became a real focus when she signed. I mean, she had some success probably with Decca that really elevates her to a pretty household name for a black artist at that time. And yet she was still very much accepted and loved in the black community. So there was no crossover rejection of Ella whatsoever. And her Decca recordings, like the Billie Holiday recordings on Decca, are more commercial. They're more pop, show tune based. But both of them have this vehicle called their soul and their spirit that emanates through everything they sing, that supersedes the bands and the recordings behind them. I mean, Billie Holiday's never hindered or fettered by the recording assemblage behind her. She elevates herself. Armstrong was the greatest probably example of that. Armstrong could be in any setting. Put that trumpet to his lips, boy, and Gabriel would come down. And he would elevate any setting with a spirit and a soul that's just undeniable. And it was tenacious, and it was so unrelentingly jubilant. A celebration. And again, that's the essence of what jazz is. It's, I think it was Ellington that once said, it's shaking off the dust of this life. And so this Hampton recording, he had assembled a group that he called and his Giants. And Lionel Hampton, probably next to Basie, next to Ellington, is probably the greatest big band leader in the black side of this music. The number of giants who we know of in the 50s and 60s through the Prestige labels and the Riverside labels and the Blue Note labels, etc., that played in Hampton's band at some point. It's, I mean, next, like I said, Ellington and Basie, the Hampton bands were just a warehouse of young black talent that he taught how to be professionals and how to be great young men. And Hampton was just a real leader of men. And it's amazing going through that trading card series and what I assembled them, just how many cats spent time with Hampton. But this here is not one of those bigger band assemblages. This is a small session recording. And his Giants are a rather anonymous lot. I mean, on piano, Norman Granz recruits only Art Tatum. And for those of you who lack jazz acumen, Lionel Hampton is the vibraphonist of vibraphonists. And there's many great players, from Roy Ayers to Milt Jackson. I mean, it's an endless line. I mean, it's not endless. There's 30, 40 great vibraphone players over the years. and probably infinite more that didn't really achieve that status. And I mean, we're not talking into the modern years either, really. But I mean, Lionel Hampton is the vibraphone. He's the guy who makes it a jazz instrument, and one that became a foreground. And that's always what elevates that instrument, is when the guy comes along and says, you know what, I want to make this a centerpiece. What Armstrong does for the trumpet, what Coleman Hawkins does for the tenor saxophone. Lionel Hampton is that for the vibraphone. And it's unequivocally his crown to wear. And then when you add Art Tatum into that mix, who, again, it's so hard to make these greatest crowns. But if you had to, in a pitch, say who's the greatest piano player in jazz history, it would be hard to say not Art Tatum. Tatum's lines, his melodic sensibility, his phrasing, his dynamic touch. I mean, so much of the avant-garde, even the bebop of Parker, the minimalism of Monk, the flash of Gillespie, so much of what innovates in jazz. Even Parker and these guys would acknowledge Tatum was a precursor to a lot of that. And if memory serves, when Parker first came to New York, I think he was washing dishes in a place where Tatum played. And that could have been in Pittsburgh, but I'm pretty sure it was in New York. And a young Parker was one of the most interesting feeders. Because what Parker would gestate artists and music, he could reassemble it into his own vernacular and codify it, but never in an intellectual or mathematical way. It was a natural blues-driven innovation that still defied all the logic of the norms. And as the history all tells us, it was Gillespie who codified and wrote down what Bird, Charlie Parker brought to us. But Tatum had an impact on Parker that Parker never denied. Parker always acknowledged Tatum's greatness. And Tatum records a lot over the years for Columbia, but his body of work for Norman Granz is an immense, a bit like Ella Fitzgerald. When he signed Tatum, he's just like, dude, you record, go record, go record, go record. And there's a big ass body of work of Tatum stuff. And Peterson, Oscar Peterson, is probably second chair in that great jazz band in the sky to Art Tatum. And Peterson backs more of the Norman Granz body of work. Probably more a contemporary age-wise, Peterson was. And the Peterson trio backs just so much of the Verve canon. They're really undocumented and unheralded a backing group as there was, because a lot of times when you see those recordings by these great groups led by Lester Youngs and Sweets Edisons and these cats, you don't even recognize that the background is that Peterson group. And sometimes the look, sometimes it doesn't even say it. You have to go do some research to find out. But so Hampton here is playing with Art Tatum. So, I mean, arguably the two greatest on that instrument to ever do it. And then you have Buddy Rich on the drums. And I've always been unsure of how great Buddy Rich was, but I saw some YouTube stuff the other day. Boy, Buddy Rich, man. And of course, in jazz, you have to fit into an assembly and be part of a conversation. So virtuosity can't always be front and center. But Buddy Rich is probably the only drummer in the world that you could sit on a stage by his damn self and you would watch him for an hour and be like, what the fuck? And there's infinite great drummers, infinite great players of piano and vibraphone. But I mean, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that Sweets is just killing me. Sweets Edison. I mean, we'll just move on to Sweets Edison. Now, he's the trumpet player in this session. And Harry Sweets Edison is the trumpet player. For those of you who aren't in the Dizzy Gillespie, Clifford Brown, bright Roy Eldridge sound, if you like a little bit more thoughtfulness, and if you're in that Miles Davis, Art Farmer kind of lineage, Sweets Edison, you hear him in guys like Blue Mitchell. I mean, you hear him in guys like Lee Morgan. And of course, Miles Davis emulates the muted Sweets Edison sound throughout his career. When Miles kind of latches onto that mute, it really helps Miles codify what he's going to be. But Sweets is that guy. And boy, when he's talking to you, man, if you ain't listening, you're missing a story, because he's always got a little oration going on that's gonna tell you something cheeky and cute and funny, and he's got character and personality. And man, my friend Jean-Michel loves Sweets Edison so much, and the stories he would tell about Sweets. So I mean, you're just talking about royalty after royalty after royalty. It's a king's chamber. It's a full house. It's a flush. It's straight of all kings. I mean, it's just, and it just keeps going on. I mean, on the guitar you have Barney fucking Kessel. And of course, Barney Kessel was later to be a member of the Wrecking Crew, that great Los Angeles recording studio enterprise that records on so many rock, pop, and R&B records. The Wrecking Crew was really a synonymous part of recording landscape for the longest of times. And Kessel's work is largely at contemporary on the West Coast, but Barney is just an incredible player. And then that's not even the end of it. I mean, you have John Simmons on the bass, Red Callender plays some bass, and I mean, it's really an incredible record. And it's incredible how synchronous these guys are for as much talent as you stuffed into one envelope. The fact that it comes out as a text that you can read and not just a jumble of words. I mean, that's what jazz is. We're all going to speak, but we're all going to take turns, and we're all going to listen to each other, and it's all going to be coherent because we do take the time to feel what my brother is saying, so that when I speak, it comes from that same place. And I'm responding to what you just told me. And when you stay within that conversational call and response, preacher in the choir, I mean, can I get an amen? Yeah. I mean, that's the essence of what jazz is. And so it's never ego driven. It's never driven by that virtuosity for virtuosity's sake. It's always just the dynamic approach of the exploration of my psyche and my personality and my emotions that tumble me through musical ideation that can sometimes be endless. Because our ideas are endless. Our feelings are endless. And so music can be that interlocutor to express the immediacy of that connection. And only jazz does it that way. I mean, no other art form is as immediate and instant expression of, man, this is how the fuck I feel right now. I mean, you write a book, or I mean, a poem and a rock song. Those things stay rigid in their form. And jazz is a completely different expression. It's saying, regardless of what the guy who wrote this had intended, this is how I feel right now. And it's just such a different way to approach it. I got really excited listening to some of this stuff yesterday. Ellingtonia 56. This is again our Norgran number 1055. I don't think this had a 10-inch connection. I think it's just pretty much a 12-inch session from 55, possibly 56. And this is the great Johnny Hodges, the alto answer to the Lesters and the Coleman Hawkins. I mean, Hodges was emulated by everybody who played the alto after. Again, storytelling is such a big part of what these guys were about. And Ellington at 56, Hodges, I think, had just left Ellington's band. And they were still friends and they still worked together. And they made a couple of, he brought Ellington over to Verve to do some sessions that side by side and back to back records. Hodges, just a great personality and a cheeky fella. And here he's playing with Ellington alumnus. And I mean, Cat Anderson on this record is just eyebrow throat grabbing. I mean, there's a couple times he was just like, what the? Ray Nance, who plays some violin and trumpet. The great Jimmy Hamilton's on the clarinet. And I mean, these are just, again, the talent level here. Paul Gonzalez on the tenor. Britt Woodman on the trombone. Quentin Jackson's on the trombone. If I remember, Quentin replaced Lawrence Brown in Ellington's group. And Russell Prokop here, who does, I think it's alto and some clarinet as well. Fun numbers. I think it's all Ellington pieces, if I recall. And if I remember, Billy Strayhorn sits in on the piano. This was an incredibly fun listen. Jimmy Wood, the drummer of Ellington's, also on this session. And I'm trying to remember who the bass player was. So Jim Wood was the bass. Sam Woodyard was the drummer. Boy, it's just, again, just royalty. And the dynamic expressions of this orchestra, these guys. Again, it's amazing how you can put 7-8 guys into a room and come with something so condensed, something so refined, something so minimal, yet expressive. When you have 6-7 guys in lockstep and then one guy counterpointing that, it's just, I can't express the joy that some of this music can give me when I'm allowing it to permeate. I've been pretty exhausted and stressed financially, just going through a lot of stuff. And there's days where I'm like, I don't feel like putting a record on. I'm just going to put it on my streaming system. And it never really connects with me the same way. And sure, I hear moments and passages. I'm like, oh, that's nice. But it never seems to fail when I put her vinyl on. And I've been DJing a lot too. And so sometimes that makes me, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go play 6-7 hours on Saturday or Sunday. And so I'm not going to play records today. I'm going to wait to do it then. It makes me play less records at home when I DJ a lot. But yesterday I was diving in and playing stuff, and boy, I just had so much fun. It brought the smile and the joy and the experience just washed over me. That might be the loudest truck of all time. That was on a prop plane that just rolled by my window. That was just a truck. An awfully loud truck that sounded like it was in a gear 4 times too low for his, I mean, I don't know what the hell it was doing, but great stuff. Again, Norman Granz needs to be thanked extensively for this stuff. Got to move along here because we're kind of falling behind, but this Oneida Day record, which had a 10-inch counterpoint, number C-130. Interesting cover by David Stone Martin here. Obviously a black woman and a fella on the stoop. But don't be misled. Anita O'Day was a cheeky white gal. And these are culled from 3 different sessions. One with Ralph Burns, one by Ray Kroll, and there's some Larry Russell arranged stuff as well that gets added to this that wasn't on the 10-inch. And she has a body of work that largely associated with Stan Kenton. But then when she starts going on her own, I mean, she's just a really fantastic vocalist with a sense of timing that's not often heard in Caucasian singers, to be honest. Me and my friend Brian were listening to this yesterday, and it's truly an enjoyable record. And Anita O'Day, for those who know, love her dearly, but I think a lot of people overlook her stuff and don't do it. She's just a real masterful craftsperson. Quick mention of this Billy Bauer record, which I think I might have mentioned a couple episodes ago, but I've been playing this quite a bit at my gigs. And plectrist, which is another term for a guitar player, a great player. And I think he plays with Milton and Elsie Johnson on this, which is pretty incredible rhythm section. That record's worth finding. It was Norgran 1082. And then last Norgran 1039, the great Ben Webster, who we're going to talk about here in a second. But this is with strings, and that's another great David Stone Martin album cover, showing the brute. And one of the things Ellington often did was he would nickname his guys. And he would nickname them in a way that coined and characterized who they were. But the nicknames were so applicable and so relatable that they almost always stuck. If Ellington dimed you, you were dimed. So we're going to move on to one more guy now that this episode is already 30 minutes long, which is unfortunate. I get to rambling sometimes when I get excited. We're going to dive into Illinois Jacquet. And I really kind of went down a wormhole yesterday with Jacquet. And he initially he's a Texas tenorman, although he's born in Louisiana. But the Texas tenormen were a special breed of big, broad-toned players. And if you played Texas alto, you used a tenor reed to give you a thicker, fuller sound. If you were a Texas tenor, oh my God. If you were a Texas tenorman, you'd use a baritone reed. So you always used a reed that was oversized. And it's part of what gets these guys to having their own sound. But when Norman Granz was assembling his lineup of guys, he starts playing at the Jazz at the Philharmonic. And again, so he spent time with Lionel Hampton. His recordings of Flying Home were kind of legendary. He plays in some of the greatest assemblages of talent. And again, kind of a forgotten name, and even more so his brother Russell Jacquet, who was a great trumpet player who's on a lot of Illinois sessions. And Illinois' first name was Baptiste Illinois Jacquet. Jacquet was just a character and a player, and like Dexter Gordon, you get the feeling he was a real ladies' man and a real gentleman of the night. And his music has this body calling to it, and a flirtatious, but yet spiritual and golf blues, all kind of condensed into this gumbo of Jacquet sound. And Norman records him, and it starts off with Collates #1. And Collates is a mid-century term for just a collection of, so it's probably a collection of some of his 78 sides, which he probably recorded initially. There he is on the back. And again, this is that 10-inch number C112. An incredible David Stone Martin cover there. The pink light bulb just really, I mean, it just really has an evocative feel to it. There's a little mouse on the bench for some reason. But it's just wonderful Jacquet. All of Me. Speedline was fantastic. Letter Later for the Happening, Groovin', Wrap Your Troubles in Dreams. It's just fantastic stuff. And then he follows that up with Collate's number 2, Jazz by Jazz. Oh, sorry. Collate's number 2 is right there. And again, fantastic stuff here. And it's accompanied by just nobody here. Count Basie on the piano. Art Blakey on the drums. Freddie Green on the guitar. And Ray Brown on the bass. And there's also a Jimmy Crawford and a John Collins on this. Who I can't remember what those two play. I would guess one of them is trumpet. But it's just great stuff. I mean, that rhythm section of Basie, Green, Blakey, and Brown. I mean, it's just a testament to how incredible Norman Granz's assemblage of talent was. And then this is his third 10-inch Jazz by Jacquet. And again, just wonderful stuff here. He's back with his brother Cecil Payne, the fantastic baritonist, is on this. Matthew Gee, who was an Ellington alumni who played the trombone. Shadow Wilson, Raymond Assia on the piano, and Al Lucas on the bass. And those 10 inches now get called into a number of different LP settings. And it's a convoluted assemblage of stuff. This is Jazz Moods by Illinois Jacquet number 622. And this has some of that 10-inch stuff on it. And then number 700 also has some of that 10-inch stuff on it. And I think there's other stuff on these records as well. It's not a very smooth transition of these recordings in terms of the lineage of them. But I think these both got Verve reissues. And it's just great stuff. And if you can find it on the LP or on the 10-inch, either way you want to go for it. But the two albums I want to discuss here real quick is this record right here. And this record, he's backed by Sweets Edison. And Sweets and Jacquet together, it's just, boy, I hope Jean-Michel watches this, so I'd like to have a chat with him about it. It's on the organ, you have Gerald Wiggins, who's a West Coast piano player, who's, again, slipped into some obscurity today, sadly. But Sweets and Jacquet kind of co-write a couple of tunes on here, including Cool Bill, which is one of the coolest songs I've heard in a long time. The version of Stardust by Hoagie Carmichael is fantastic. Curtis Counts is on the bass. Al Barty is on the drums. It's really, really a fun session. And I got to show you a few things on this record. Let me pause this. That's the Texas Blues right there. I mean, you can almost taste the baked beans in your mouth. This is Cool Bill, I believe. Make sure. Yeah. And Sweets and Jacquet are just fantastic on this. And as Frank Sinatra would often say, if you want someone to accompany you, Sweets Edison's your guy. I mean, his ability to feel and then just accent is pretty unrivaled. And there's a part at the end of this record that literally had me jumping out of my chair yesterday. And I'm going to jump ahead to it real quick. So we're going to turn this up a little bit. Hopefully we don't get this demonetized, but if we do, we do. So the organ's playing, Gerald Wiggins. Nice stuff. But now Jacquet comes back in. Watch what Sweet says. We're going to do it again, just because we have to. I mean, this is why jazz is joyful. And now he's going to kind of echo him, shadow him. Now watch what happens here. Ooh, boy. It's so conversational. It's stupid, man. It's just a couple old cats chilling, telling you a story, man. How cute was? Oh, she was cute. I mean, she was a looker. Oh yeah, but she was good, man. What you mean? Oh, I mean, let me tell you what I mean. I mean, it was, you could just hear two old brothers talking to each other. It's stupidly cool. But that's the joy of jazz. I mean, that's the joy what this music is about. And I want to mention real quick this session here with the Brute and the Kid. Ben Webster walks into the studio when Norman's recording some Jacquet, and they're like kind of sitting there shooting the breeze, and they end up coming to the recognition that we should probably track some stuff together. And Russell, his brother Russell's on this. Leo Parker, the baritone player's on this one. O.C. Johnson, Chano Pozo shows up. So there's some fun. I mean, Chano Pozo adds an element to this that gives it that Latin feel at times. And but the record we're listening to is this one here. And it did have a Clef 676 counterpart, same cover. It's stupid how good this stuff is. Sweets. Oh, I mean, guys, come on. The last we're going to show you Puerto Rico, which again, this has some of the 10-inch stuff. I believe that Puerto Rico, the Count Basie stuff. It's tough to get to know the Verve canon because it is convoluted. But I mean, listen to these bands again: Jacquet, Count Basie, Hank Jones, Ray Brown, and Jimmy Crawford. Jacquet, Cecil Payne, Russell Jacquet, Matthew Gee, Shettle Wilson, Al Lucas, and Raymond Asia. Sir Charles Thompson's on a couple of these tracks. It's joyful celebration. There's a point on this track, I believe it is, maybe on the other side, I can't remember, where Sweets Edison's almost sounds like he's 3 train tracks over. He's playing so softly in the background, but he doesn't feel a need to push the envelope to be heard because he feels like these vespers of sounds I'm going to emanate in the background are going to add such a mystical, misty layer that it'll be the perfect veil to kind of put a mist around what Jacquet's saying. And that's the sweetness of Sweets. That understanding of the piece being the vehicle. And it's the piece that when we express that correctly, it'll help me share my emoting. Oh, these guys. These records everything I've shown you, are fantastic from front to back. There's nothing that you need to skip. There's no uneasy moments. There's no uncertain moments. These are all veterans who are given the freedom to really just be, to just feel and play. And Norman, while a taskmaster at times, in a financial sense, in a structured sense, in a recording session sense, you never feel like he really fettered or hindered the musical process much. I mean, he knew these guys could play. He knew these guys had the blues and the soul and the story to back it all. And it's just such a testament and a holy temple that we need to be thankful for, and we all need to dive deeper into it. It's an incredible chapter of jazz, and I just get excited listening to it and sharing it with people. And I play this stuff at my DJ gigs, and I splinter this stuff in, and it's just so good that you're gonna wonder why you don't have it. That's how good it is. So I mean, Webster, Sweets, Jacquet, these are three names that should never be far removed from any jazz fan's tongue. If you know Miles Davis and John McLaughlin, but you don't know Sweets Edison, and you don't know Barney Kessel, and you don't know Ben Webster, and you don't know Lester Young, I mean, you're really missing out on the royalty. The greatest of the greats, the most just the royal lineage. I mean, these guys spent all the years to be these legends. And many of the later guys who come along are fantastic and great and earn their place. But it's funny how different the jazz kingdom looks 50, 70 years on to the modern jazzophile versus how it actually existed in the 40s and 50s. And I think most of these jazz greats will be chagrined to see the landscape of jazz today as a whole, but also to see how so many perceive what jazz is, what people are buying and collecting, often based on because it's rare, nobody else knows it, and I'm so sophisticated. And people overlook so much of what's just jazz. And I think there's a mindset, oh, this is only $10.99 in a record store, it can't be any good. And we got to stop putting dollar values to greatness. I mean, this one actually says $38.99, which I don't think I spent that much for it, if I don't remember, but I mean, I would probably have never spent that much. I might have bundled it with some stuff, but I think I probably got it online, so that's probably even not even right. But anyway, so Jacquet, Sweets Edison, Ben Webster, these guys need to be on your playlists. Dig them out, love them. Appreciate y'all. Please support the channel if you can. Patreon, PayPal is most appreciated. I'm trying to keep this cafe going. It's been too slow, to be honest. I've been open for an hour, haven't had a customer, so. But the love of the music's still there, and it's great when you kind of rekindle that a little bit and feel some fire and feel that excitement that, like, oh yeah, that's why this music does what it does to me. So dig that stuff. Talk to y'all soon. Peace.